Okay, so here we go to part 5, kind of tying in a lot of the stuff we've just been talking about. Kind of let's apply it to Rick. Rick loves to do anything around the house that is useful. He likes to be of use. Your OT goal is to find an appropriate functional activity to help Rick around the house. He likes to be outside as well. That will help him manage stress, improve his muscle strength in the deltoids, biceps, triceps, lats, teres major, serratus anterior, all the muscles around the scapula and the shoulder movement, and improve his overall endurance. Decide on one task to address above, grade the activity into 3 levels, decide on 2 other activities that may be appropriate for Rick and that address his deficits. You need to be able to do this. I'm hoping you're able to do this at this point because you're going to be asked to do this in some form on the midterm. So if this is something that's like you're just totally lost on, please kind of stop in or ask questions around this. But try to do this, best you can on your own. You want to stop the video right now and try to do it on your own, and then come back to me. I'll show you what I would do for Rick. So for Rick, what I would do is an outdoor activity that really works his arms and shoulders and scapula. To me, raking is a really good one. Raking would be the activity. How could I grade it into 3 levels? Raking further out, reaching closer is one way of grading it. Different types of raking. Maybe anybody that's raked knows some raking is harder than other raking. Raking dry leaves is easier than raking wet leaves. Raking dirt, say you're going to rake dirt up before you plant some grass, can be harder. Raking stones out of the grass, say it's the springtime, and the snow plow has put all kinds of stones into your lawn. Raking those out of the lawn can be even harder. There'd be ways you could grade the activity. Just the endurance of it, how long he's doing it for, how many days a week. 2 other activities, I would stick with the yard work kind of theme. Other things you could do in the yard, shoveling dirt, the leaves, picking up the leaves, putting them onto a wheelbarrow, wheeling the wheelbarrow, dumping it into the mulch pile or whatever he does. A wheelbarrow, shoveling, clipping, hedges and stuff. Think of all these great shoulder scapula movements and how you could grade those. Just endless possibilities around yard work with him. I think it would be a great intervention for him. Okay, so these are the lecture questions. Let's go back to them. Define meaningful occupation. Give an example. Meaningful occupation. It's something, it's meaningful. It's important to the person. They love to do it. They enter a state of flow or timelessness when they're doing it. Examples, loving to cook. I gave the example, I love to cook when I'm really cooking for my family on the weekend. When I have the time, I lose a sense of time and it's very enjoyable. Or playing tennis. Why is it more effective than exercise? Research supports that it's more effective. Kind of speculating it's more effective because you're focused more on the activity itself versus the exercise. It's not a chore. It's something you love to do. You're more compliant with it. But just that fully engaging of your mind, body, and soul into something you just really love really seems to pay off in terms of gaining in a rehab sense quicker. Define top-down and bottom-up approach. Top-down approach is an occupational therapy, generally speaking, approach. The activity is the focus. Top-down approach, activity is the focus. Bottom-up approach, more generally something a physical therapist would do. Exercise is the focus. You start with exercise, hoping that it will improve the activity. Whereas top-down, you start and really focus on activities themselves. What is grading an activity? Given an example. Grading is just kind of making different levels of difficulty, starting very easy, a little bit harder and harder. Always keeping in mind we want that just right challenge. Not too challenging, not too easy, that sort of thing. So give an example. So let's say I was rehabbing and I want to go back to cooking and I was pretty wiped out. I had surgery or something. And I can't do much, but I can do a little thing. I can get up and I can make a sandwich at the kitchen counter, and it wipes me out. And it's very challenging, but I did it, and it's very rewarding. Like, oh, I can make myself a sandwich. If I'm home alone during the day, my wife can go someplace. She doesn't have to worry about me. I can get my own lunch, kind of thinking. 5 contraindications for exercise. Let's see if I can get them off the top of my head. Certain neurological diagnoses, multiple sclerosis, Guillain-Barré. You can do exercises, but you have to be careful. Fatigue with those kinds of diagnoses can make their symptoms worse. Pain can be a problem. Too much pain with exercise, certain exercise can be a problem. They start compensating, that can be a problem. They have bad form. See what else. The doctor says, doctor's orders no exercise until that shoulder fully heals. I think also said spasticity. Spasticity, exercise can make spasticity worse, and it may be more difficult for them to move their arm, for example, if you vigorously exercise them. Define each of the following and give an example. Isometric, eccentric, concentric, open and closed chain. Isometric, no joint movement. You're just contracting just the muscle, not moving the joint. Eccentric, you're lengthening, stretching the muscle. Concentric, you're contracting, shortening the muscle. Examples, isometric, hanging from, when the guy was doing the pull-up and he pulled himself up and he just hung from the pull-up bar. He was working his muscles, but no joints were being moved. Eccentric contraction. As you're hanging from the pull-up bar, you're stretching out, lengthening your latissimus dorsi. Concentric contraction, as I do a bicep curl, as I'm lifting a big jug of milk, I'm concentrically contracting my bicep. Open and closed chain movements. Open chain movement, keep thinking of the one sitting and just lifting your legs up, working your quads. Closed chain movement, you're going from sit to stand. Sitting and then standing up, you're engaging your gastrocs, your calf muscles, that plantar flexion joint movement and muscle engagement. How would you stretch, strengthen the following muscles? We kind of just did this. The rhomboids, we know they contract the scapula, retract the scapula, pull your shoulder blades together. How would you strengthen them? I would do rows. You could do them with a resistive band. Stretch, I would protract the scapula, kind of punching out. You'd be stretching out the rhomboids. Anterior delta, we know that does shoulder flexion. How would you strengthen that with a weight? Shoulder flexion, how would you stretch it? The opposite. Shoulder extension. If you do it yourself, you can feel that anterior deltoid stretching out. Subscapularis. Subscapularis, what does it do? Internal rotation. So we could strengthen it with doing internal rotating with a weight. How would we stretch it? External rotation. Infraspinatus is the opposite. Infraspinatus does the external rotation. You could strengthen it by throwing a baseball, and you could stretch it by following through on throwing the baseball. Okay, so what's coming up? 9:20, we have our practicum. It's a little bit different because it's in the lab. It's the last hour of the lab. It's going to be on the scapula, shoulder, and the elbow. Just on the manual muscle testing, make sure you do it exactly like those videos, palpating the right anatomy, saying the right anatomy as you do it. There's no quiz. You may be called for student-led. We may have time to do a student-led on the shoulder, scapula, and elbow. Let me know if you have questions. That is the end of week